Today we're going to talk about navigating grief through the polyvagal lens, beginning with the body's story of loss. Before grief becomes something we can talk about, before we have language to talk about grief, it is something the body registers. Loss is first experienced as a biological event through changes in our breath, our posture, muscle tone, sleep, and internal rhythm. Many people notice their body feels different before they can explain why. The shoulders feel heavier, the breath feels shorter, the nervous system is already responding. Grief is not something the body simply experiences, though. It is something the body organizes around. And I feel it's very important to begin with this understanding. So, why does grief feel so physical? It feels so physical because attachment is physical. Attachment lives in the nervous system. It's shaped by repetition, proximity, and co-regulation. When a loved one dies, the brain is forced to hold two realities at once. The thinking mind knows our loved one has passed away, while the attachment system still expects their presence. This is why you may feel tightness in your chest, a lump in your throat, or an ache that feels almost literal, and I'd add visceral. These sensations aren't imagined. They are the nervous system responding to the sudden rupture of an attachment bond. Dr. Mary Frances O'Connor said, "You can't talk about grief without talking about love and bonding, because unless you understand what you have, you don't really understand the impact of its loss." So, grieving naturally oscillates between two opposing survival states, that's of protest and despair. Protest is the go response, the frantic searching, the restlessness, the sense of this cannot be real. Despair is the no go response, the heaviness, numbness, and also, oh snap, this is real, and collapse that follows when searching no longer feels possible. You may notice yourself moving between these two states. One moment restless or preoccupied, the next completely exhausted, depleted. These shifts are not emotional instability, they are biological survival responses. The answer to grief does not lie in stages, but in states. Polyvagal theory was developed by Dr. Stephen Porges. He explains how the nervous system constantly scans for safety and danger through a process called neuroception, below conscious awareness. This is why understanding grief intellectually doesn't always change how it feels in the body. The nervous system reorganizes through safety, not logic. So Dr. Porges states, as you see in the slide here, our nervous system is picking up information, not on the cognitive level, but on a neurobiological level. These responses are not voluntary. And if you take a look at the image here on this slide, it shows how the vagus nerve, and we'll get into this in a few, I think maybe the next slide. Um, we talk about how the vagus nerve is also known as the wandering nerve, and it begins at the brain stem, travels all the way down into your major organ systems. What is the vagus nerve? The vagus nerve is your inner regulator. It is the main nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system and the body's primary pathway to regulation. It begins in the brainstem, travels through the face, throat, heart, lungs, and digestive organs. It earns the name the wandering nerve because of the way that it wanders from the brain down through their major organs. This is why grief affects breathing, digestion, heart rhythm, voice, and mood all at once because of the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is listening to the body's experience of loss. So we see here too, just to kind of highlight, uh, on this slide, we see that the vagus nerve is also referred to as the cranial nerve X. It is the main component of the parasympathetic nervous system. It makes up 75% of its nerve fibers. Vagal tone is the flexibility of the nervous system. Vagal tone refers to the nervous system's ability to move out of stress and return to a calm baseline. So think of it as flexibility. We think about mental flexibility, physical flexibility, and now this is neurobiological flexibility. High vagal tone allows for emotional resilience, adaptability, and recovery. Low vagal tone may show up as chronic anxiety, shutdown, digestive issues, or difficulty managing stress. This is why, after loss, you may feel more easily overwhelmed or struggle to settle at night. Your nervous system isn't broken. It's working with the tone it currently has. And importantly, vagal tone can be strengthened through experience. So you can technically and actively improve your vagal tone. The nervous system operates in a hierarchy, always seeking safety. According to the polyvagal theory, the nervous system works and operates in a hierarchy, always seeking safety. At the top is ventral vagal, pardon, safety and social engagement. In the middle, we have the sympathetic, which is mobilization or the fight and flight response. And at the bottom, we have dorsal vagal, which is shut down or immobilization. After loss, the nervous system often moves down this ladder, not because something is wrong, but because safety has been disrupted at a foundational level. Ventral vagal regulation is the state where we feel calm, connected, curious, and grounded. Physiologically, heart rate is regulated, digestion improves, and higher brain functions are available. Behaviorally, we co regulate through voice, facial expression, and presence. In grief, this state may appear only in brief moments, perhaps while talking to a trusted friend or feeling supported. These moments are not betrayals of grief, they are signs of nervous system resilience. And in certain cases, people might feel a bit of shame if they happen to experience some laughter, joy, or happiness while grieving. But there is no need for that, as we see here, because ultimately, when you're able to experience those pockets of joy, of calm, happiness, of laughter, of peace, you're building your resilience. When safety is lost, the nervous system mobilizes, and this is where we talk about the sympathetic or fight or flight. Heart rate increases in this space. Adrenaline rises and breathing becomes shallow. This is why many grieving people feel anxious, restless, irritable, or tired but wired. And this is also where we find that sleep gets disrupted because of that sense of feeling wired yet exhausted and unable to rest. We're in the sympathetic state. The body is not malfunctioning, though. It is preparing for action in response to a perceived threat, even when the threat is emotional loss. In the dorsal vagal state, which is also referred to as shutdown, when mobilization becomes too costly, the nervous system shifts into shutdown or immobilization. It's like the last resort. Heart rate and breathing slow, energy drops, sensation dulls. This is why grief can bring numbness and dissociation or heaviness. This state is often misunderstood because biologically it is protective. The body is conserving energy to prevent overwhelm. Now, protest is driven by dopamine, the brain's motivation and pursuit system. The nervous system interprets absence as a problem to solve. This is why you may replay memories, check messages, or even feel compelled to stay busy. This searching is not denial, it is loyalty. The body is acting in devotion to love. Dr. O'Connor says, if you are gone, it just means I have to go find you. So it's an interpretation of the brain having a problem to solve because we tend to see a problem and want to go fix it. But it doesn't work that way in grief. There's nothing to fix. Instead, it's a process to journey through. When protest fails and the reality of loss becomes unavoidable, the nervous system triggers shutdown. Despair stops the costly search. It conserves energy. This is why you may feel disconnected, hopeless, or emotionally distant. Despair is not giving up. It is the body protecting itself from further depletion. Grief is a form of learning. The goal is not to let go of attachment. We're not trying to get rid of the bond that remains encoded in the nervous system. What changes is the internal relationship. This is why you may feel the presence of your loved one, hear their voice, or sense them in your body. Integration allows life to grow around grief rather than erasing it. You can still adapt to a world where the person is gone, according to Dr. Mary Frances O'Connor. And also, they live on because they are deeply encoded in your brain. You cannot get rid of them no matter how you try. So we say that energy cannot be destroyed. This is one representation of that because the experience we had with our loved one is encoded in our nervous system. We can't erase that. It becomes a part of us, just like now their spirit. So let's talk now about co-regulation and connection. Co-regulation is a biological imperative, right? We need connection. We need community to heal, to thrive, to support, to help. We are not meant to grieve alone. Nervous systems regulate in relationships. After loss, the body must learn to regulate without a familiar external pacemaker. This is why safe presence, being seen, heard, and felt helps restore rhythm. Connection is not emotional comfort alone, it is a biological necessity. Being stuck in defensive states has real physical consequences. So I've always said throughout this journey of grief, I have felt anchored, but I haven't felt stuck in grief because I have intentionally done things, practices to help move whatever I was feeling in my body. And as I went into studies and trainings and certifications, I realized these practices is what helps move the energy through my body, primarily dance, yoga, movement, grounding, being out in the sun, etc. So many things help me move the grief energy. So now, this is vital, and this is what I feel is calling me to this work. Cardiovascular risk increases when we are stuck in defensive states and in grief. Inflammation rises, sleep and immune function suffer. And this, again, it is not weakness. You are not broken. It is basically the cost of sustained adaptation. Grief requires care because the body is under measurable stress. So people are 21 times more likely to have a heart attack the day a loved one dies than on any other day of their lives. Can you imagine that? When I read that, I said, whoa, this is a serious problem now. Not only because, so when they say, um, let's say a couple, uh, the husband passes away and a few months later the wife passes away and they say, oh, she passed away due to a broken heart. And it's literally referred to as broken heart syndrome because yes, that's how deep the love is. That's how deep the encoding is. If we just sit in it, because we haven't been taught how to grieve. We have not been taught what is grief. For the most part, our families, or even in community, in society, people have been programmed to just carry on. You have a service, funeral service, you might have a repast for wake, and give it like 2 weeks, and people expect you to just snap back. But the brain and the body does not work like that. So we want to intentionally choose practices to help us co-regulate, well, to help us regulate our own selves so that we can also support others, if that is in your heart, I should say. So, another interesting fact, as you see here, in the first 3 months after the death of his wife, a man is twice as likely to have a fatal heart attack. This is crazy. And it's amazing to know because with information, you can then make decisions. So here we have a compassionate reframe, uh, kind of like a map, right? With this map, we can see our grief responses not as failures, but as the body's heroic efforts to survive. The path to safety is not linear. Grief is not linear. Permission to feel both grief and joy matters, and to feel it without shame. You have to respect the body's wisdom, which allows healing to unfold without force. Okay, so we can move along. First, we have the path to safety is not linear. So, yes, we understand that. We want to avoid the shutdown, create connection, and move through protest. Give ourselves permission to feel whatever is there, even joy. Respect, listen to, and honor your body's wisdom rather than judging yourself, blaming, or shaming yourself. And of course, build a toolkit. And later on, we're going to give you some different ideas along with the varied practices that are within this training program. So, grief as a language of the nervous system. As we mentioned, grief is not a linear process of emotional stages. That whole teaching is wrong. It is not, doesn't work like that. But grief is a dynamic movement between physiological states. The polyvagal lens offers a compassionate way to understand this journey. By honoring the body and seeking connection, loss can be integrated and meaning can return. So we say, well, what can I do? That's the same question I've asked myself. What can I do and what do I do with this? And my decision was to first understand what is showing up in my body, how grief and trauma shows up in the body, and what can be done to move the energy, to avoid stagnation, and to gain wisdom through understanding the natural cycle of life through personal lived experience. So I'm going to now share a couple of different tools that can improve your vagal tone and stimulate the vagus nerve. And this can help the nervous system return back to safety. Okay. Breath and sound directly stimulate the vagus nerve through the diaphragm, vocal cords, and the throat. So, slow breathing, humming, chanting, or singing can calm the nervous system and bring the body out of alarm. And pardon me on that little delay. I didn't turn to the next slide. So we have certain practices here. For example, the 478 breathing technique. In this program, I did not include the 478 technique. Instead, we do the 426 because for many, the 478 causes anxiety and it's a bit overwhelming to hold the breath so long. So with the 478 breathing technique, you first inhale for 4 counts, you hold the breath for 7, and then you exhale for 8. But since so many people don't know how to breathe voluntarily, that may be challenging to hold for 7 counts and exhale for 8. So we reduce it down to 4, 2, 6, just to support where you are. And of course, you can always grow into a longer hold and a longer exhale. The truth about both practices is that the parasympathetic nervous system gets activated on the exhalation, the elongated exhalation, where the exhale is longer than the inhale. All right, so now talking about the body and environment. So that was breath and sound vibration, the humming, singing, chanting, and I had to kind of go back real quick just to mention these. Even gargling water, which I thought was interesting, can stimulate the vagus nerve because of the way that it vibrates down the throat. Okay. And remember how the vagus nerve is the wandering nerve, so it's going all through that same region. So now thinking about body and environment. So let's see here. Yep, we can do mindful movement, and that includes yoga, some gentle stretching, some rocking, swaying, and we integrate some of that throughout our practices in this training. Massage is always nice. Cold exposure, that's something I'm working with. I've done an ice bath where I submerge my face in a bowl of ice cold water with ice cubes still in it. Usually, after a really warm shower, I complete my showers with a cold shower. Basically, I'm looking to work up to cold plunges, which I'm not quite ready for. And again, you can decide what serves you, right? Because cold might not be the thing for you. You might need warmth, and that's okay. I just try the thing, and some days I might not need that cold shower at the end of my hot shower. I might just have to leave it on hot, because I need to still hold on to that heat for a bit longer, The goal though is to know what is available to you, try things on, and see if it fits. And of course, grounding. Take off your shoes, walk in grass, get a grounding mat. You can do so many different things now that supports grounding and also helps downregulate the nervous system. Of course, we have meditation, as we mentioned, the social connection. And two things that we haven't mentioned quite yet are the gut biome, the gut microbiome. So probiotics can support your vagus nerve as well as omega-3 fatty acids, which I thought was really interesting as well. Ultimately, it helps the electricity flowing through your brain and nervous system. Moving on to embodiment. Embodiment matters because grief lives in the body. Gentle movement, grounding, temperature shifts, and safe touch help the nervous system feel present again. Healing does not happen by thinking our way through, but by inhabiting the body with compassion and with patience. And I'm just gonna, leave this open for a little bit longer as you kind of take a look here. Ultimately, I like to refer to some of these things as hacks, although there may not necessarily be hacks because it's a practice that needs to be ongoing. What we work through in our practices, you can flow through and return to, because as you return and maintain your practice, you will see how you grow and you change each time. Okay. And here we have Your nervous system has a built-in capacity for regulation. I'm gonna just read it through. Healing and self-awareness. By understanding its language through the polyvagal map and using simple tools to engage your vagus nerve, you can move from being at the mercy of automatic reactions, because when we're not checking ourselves, when we're not aware, when we don't notice, we become reactionary without even thinking twice. So we want to move from that to becoming an active participant in our own well-being. Yeah, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be in your feelings. It's okay to feel the longing, to yearn, to remember, to even cry when you are thinking of your loved one, when you are processing your grief, when you're having a moment, when those anniversaries come up, etc. And it's important to also know that you are in control of your life and how you will continue to live it. And I'd add how you will honor your loved one and their legacy through your life. Reading on, you now have the power to strengthen your resilience, build your capacity to hold life's challenges, and intentionally cultivate a sense of safety, connection, and presence. And it all starts with awareness, self-awareness. Within African spirituality and sciences, the teaching that is prominent, that has been prominent from the ancients is know thyself. Know thyself. When you are aware of how grief shows up in your brain and your nervous system and how it affects then your body, you can notice it. Notice what is showing up in your heart rate, in your breath, even in your thinking, in your ruminating thoughts, and then you can pivot. You can receive it, be aware of it, notice it, acknowledge it, honor it, and pivot so that you can grow through grief, loss, and love.